Hello there, product people. Welcome to the show that supercharges your abilities to become better thinkers, makers, and leaders. I'm your host, Alsawi, and I'm thrilled to have you join me for this exciting episode of Product People. In this episode, we'll be exploring how recruiters and hiring managers notice, evaluate, and hire designers. So whether you're a designer, a hiring manager, or simply someone curious about the world of design, sourcing, and recruitment, you're in the right place. As always, you can expect an honest conversation, valuable insights, and meaningful advice that can fuel your own journey with product, design, and leadership. Let's dive right in. Today, we have a truly multifaceted guest, a creative and tech talent consultant with over 15 years of expertise in talent management, recruitment, and marketing consulting. Currently, she serves as the Senior Creative Talent Manager at a hybrid design and branding agency. In this role, she leads recruitment for the design practice, sourcing top-tier talent, and nurturing enduring relationships with both candidates and hiring managers to drive success for brands. She holds a diploma in design and a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communication and Journalism from York University. She's also the founder of North America's largest talent and modeling agency for children, First Step Management. And finally, she's an international exhibiting visual artist with a gallery presence in Toronto, Florida, Mexico City, and Montego Bay. Oh, and did I mention that she's also an adventure sports enthusiast? Without further ado, let's welcome Injil Nedi to the Product People podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
I really appreciate that, Alsawi. Thank you for having me.
Great to start this. I know it's been a long time coming. And I was thinking before we begin, of course, with your permission, I'd love to share how we met.
Absolutely. That's a good story.
So I remember it was around end of 2018, I guess 2019, around that time frame.
Yeah.
And I was a candidate for a design role you were recruiting for, and you were representing me. And I remember having to go through 7 or 8 interviews. It was a ridiculous number. It was a very high number of interviews with that company.
Yes.
And I think I met over 10 people in the process for that design role. We were expecting an offer at the end, but then the hiring manager decided to go with an internal candidate. It was very frustrating for everyone. I remember we spoke about our frustration. I even remember the internal recruiter at the time sharing the news with me and how disappointed he was in his own team.
Yeah.
But the good news was from that experience, we built a friendship and we found that we had a lot in common. And many years later, here we are on this podcast.
Yep, here we are. And I think that's the best way to conduct recruiting and the job search process is to keep in touch with good candidates and good talent managers on the other side.
Absolutely. I think that those meaningful relationships always come later, one way or the other. And wanted to, speaking of things in common, I wanted to start by asking you from the intro, art, design, recruitment, sports, how do all your passions or interests intersect? If you can tell us a little bit more on how did you discover all of this about yourself?
Well, first of all, thank you for that intro. I mean, you made me sound fantastic, and I hope that you record this. But I mean, I creative is kind of inbred in your DNA. My father was creative. My mother was creative. I think art, design, and people in general, when you turn it outward and relate it to people, then you attract like-minded people, and you're a people person, and you become a matchmaker. But if you're asking about how art, design, and recruitment and sports kind of relate, I think to me it's like assembling this winning sports team. Like like a stellar creative team for a project involves like finding the key players, finding the unique talents, just like a sports team for forwards, midfielders, the defenders. The creative team needs the graphic designer, the UX expert, the copywriter from beginning to end. It's just about assembling a team, assembling a network, finding
Mm.
and attracting those people, and then just alchemy will take over and create something amazing.
Mm. So I think this is a very interesting metaphor, the idea of scouting or assembling a team.
Mhm.
But for our listeners, and maybe even for me, I would like to just maybe start with the basics on that front. What does a creative and tech consultant do? Maybe explain to a 7-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Okay, my daughter was 7 at some point, so I have some experience in this. But I guess to explain to a 7-year-old, I mean, there is the creative process where you're creating visual communication. So you're taking information and you're just translating it into something visual through either the laptop or the uh, a video or a picture or anything visual. You're translating information to something visual for the audience to then buy or connect with or to learn about the product or something like that. So it's hard to differentiate tech and creative nowadays because everything is
Mm.
digital. Like that's the amalgamation of the creative and tech, and you can't really have one without the other in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the I would say it's taking that information from the product or the corporation or the company and translating it into something visual that the audience, which is actually your customer, is entertained by, or they're learning from, or it solves a problem for them or something like that. So I'm the consultant that recognizes both sides, the hiring manager in the company and the agency and what they want to do, and then the candidate and their career aspirations or their skills or their value, and I'm putting them together like it's matchmaking.
Mm. Okay, I see. I was about to say that matchmaking. I think is
Yeah.
the maybe a right way to think about it. And you mentioned a number of titles or roles, and I know that words like design and designer are loaded, and sometimes it's they're qualified, with words like product before, so product design or product designer, digital designer, UX designer, graphic designer. So I think it's all maybe ways where people think that they're making things clearer by adding something in front of it. But if you were to explain what kind of design roles do you recruit for, and maybe give us a little bit on how do they differ?
Yeah. So throughout my career, I've recruited for all different types of design, but currently, specifically, I'm recruiting for designers. We used to call them graphic designers, but
Mm.
designer designer now has to be a generalist in some cases or very specific. So you're not just graphic because it's not about just graphics anymore. It's about motion. It's about the product, as you said, the UI or the UX designer. It's about producers that
Mm.
take all that creative and produce it and put it into a medium to then put it out to the public. So I on any given day I could be looking for a designer, yes, with a specific illustrator, maybe digital illustration skill, or I could be looking for a copywriter or a technical copywriter or a creative director who's kind of like um, the creative lead and the
Mhm.
project manager in one kind of that deals with the client, or an art director who's more in charge of the look and feel of the whole campaign, maybe. So
Mm.
in general, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Oh, there's a lot of roles and a lot of titles that go in the process, and And I think this is where I think it'd be good to maybe set the stage and expand a little bit on what does the design recruitment process look like? Like, how does it typically work? Can you give us a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, different agencies, different sizes of agencies, whether you're in house or you're at the agency level where you're dealing with multiple different clients, that's all going to, their process is all going to differ very much. But for
Mm,
me, at an agency that is in charge of branding and design, I get the brief or the need for the person. If we don't have that skill set on the static team, on the permanent team that we have, so I get the need from the hiring manager. So it could be a freelancer or it could be a permanent new team member. And then I manage the process from beginning to end, from attracting that person that they need with a specific skill set and recruiting
mm,
them, bringing them in or posting, recruiting the right talent and executing the play-by-play to find, the perfect team member or freelancer or new skill set for that project or the team.
okay, so it starts with a brief. It's then about finding the person. You said attracting.
Mhm.
Um, just trying to clarify some words. Is recruitment and sourcing different in this case,
I would
or is it the same?
Yeah, you could literally divide it up into sourcing is finding the source, like finding the person, and
Mm,
recruitment is that kind of interview process. Posting, interviewing, talking to the hiring manager, interviewing the candidate, and then introducing them to your hiring manager that is wanting to hire them. That's the recruitment part, and then I like the talent management scope where you're kind of beginning to end the whole process.
mm,
That includes the sourcing, the recruitment process, the educating the hiring managers about the market, maybe, and then bringing it to all the way to onboarding and after that and keeping in touch. That's the talent experience, and I think that's what sets
mm,
apart the recruitment process or the process in general. I think if you look at it from that lens of it's a full on talent experience from the hiring manager side and the candidate side, then
mm,
that makes it much more encompassing and much more like holistic. It's the more
mm.
holistic approach to it.
Okay, that's very helpful. So, starting from that hiring manager brief, going through sourcing, recruitment, understanding of market, all the way to bringing that candidate to their new role, onboarding.
Yep.
It's a full process. You said it's called, or you like to call it, the full talent experience or end to end.
Mhm.
And I wanted to ask you,
Mhm.
what do you think, or where do you think you add the most value?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I've been lucky enough to have many different experiences in this matchmaking process, and
Mm-hmm.
also on the creative side as well. So I went back in 2014 to study design, but I didn't become an artist until recently. So I think my perspective um, on being on both sides of the fence have been affording me some like insight and the empathy of the candidate as well as the hiring manager, what they want. But the value would be, I think, in my network, my pipeline of professionals that I keep in touch with, my critical design eye being on those both sides, and just the matchmaker in me, the coach, um,
Mm-hmm.
the coach. I've coached for soccer in national soccer in Canada. I think
Wow. Okay.
that's just the personality,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the middle person that understands both, players and the game. So I can hopefully add value to the creative team that way and culture match, and hopefully the candidate is getting a better insight as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and maybe a touchdown once in a while.
See, I love the sports metaphors.
I can't stop now that we started.
The coaching was interesting because I could see this going both ways, coaching both the candidates, but also coaching the hiring manager on things like the market state, and probably other things that they require education on that you understand because of the empathy that you mentioned. And being a designer, to your point, brings a completely different perspective, a unique perspective. So there must be, or maybe this is an assumption. Let me ask it in a more a neutral way. Is there
Yeah.
a part of this talent experience that you don't enjoy it as much? You know, if there's a part that's your least favorite, maybe you can share that with us.
Depends on the day, definitely.
Mm.
But I mean, no talent manager or recruiter or anyone wants to tell a candidate that they're not chosen for the role, right?
Mm.
If we're presenting them to the hiring manager, we believe in them. We think they have we know they have a value, but we think they might be a match. But it's ultimately the hiring manager's decision. And just telling them that it's not for them when they've been really looking forward to the role is the hardest part, but it's not the worst part, because I truly believe that if it's not for you, if it's not meant to,
Mm.
it will not happen, and you go on to something even maybe bigger and better, because you don't know ultimately unless you're in the situation, like if this is good for you.
That's That's very interesting. So you're talking about rejections, I guess, and going back to the matchmaking frame now. But rejections are
Yeah.
tough, and I
Yeah.
can I can imagine that it does happen the other way around as well. Sometimes when an offer maybe goes out to a candidate and they decide to go with something else, or do you see it mostly happening from the hiring manager's side?
Well, just the sheer statistics. So there are going to always be more candidates than there are
Hmm.
roles, definitely, and there's always more competition than there are roles. And there have been rejections from the candidate, not in my experience lately, but in the past. I mean, a good candidate is going to get several offers, and they're going to get multiple people after them throwing money at them. In some
Hmm.
cases, 5K here, 10K there, benefits. That's part of the educating the hiring manager about what this candidate is up against and what they have
Hmm.
available. And a good recruiter is going to find out what they're considering as well, and being transparent and keeping open. Candidates will be transparent with you and tell you what company, what
Hmm.
they're offering, what the benefits are, if you're transparent with them and you're giving them feedback. So yeah, it definitely goes both ways.
Hmm. You said something about being transparent with candidates and giving them feedback.
Yeah.
I'm seeing more and more, not only memes online, but people venting their frustration about this concept of recruitment ghosting, not
Yeah.
hearing, not hearing any updates, not understanding what's going on. What do you? I mean, tell us a little bit as an insider into this. How do you see this? Is it true? I mean, does it happen? What's your take on this?
I think it absolutely happens, and it shouldn't be happening.
Hmm.
Just just respect, right? But I think that a lot of recruiters have multiple candidates to respond to, and only so many hours in the day. And
Hmm.
on the inside scoop, if they have a hiring manager who's not telling them feedback, who's not giving them information, who's not saying why the candidate isn't a right fit, they don't know what to tell you. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's easier, and they want to slide under the radar and hope that you'll forget about them because you're applying to multiple different companies. But on the other hand, there are many candidates as well who are definitely applying to multiple companies as well, and don't let the recruiter know that they're out of the running. So
Hmm.
I don't take issue with it, but I don't operate that way. I like to operate with integrity and always tell them, even if it's a no. So any recruiters or talent managers out there, schedule Friday afternoon, half an hour to go and contact all of your candidates you've talked to for the week that are not in the running anymore, and tell them
Mm.
as much as you can without giving anything, too much information, but be constructive. You're working with humanity here. You're working with people,
Mm.
working with their lives and their livelihood and their families and things like that. And just, be cognizant of that. It doesn't take much.
Absolutely. I agree to that. And I think it makes a huge difference. Personally, for me, I found that when I do get the updates, even if it's if it's a no update, but it's an update to say, hey, I followed up and I don't have anything to share with you, but I just want you to know that, I'm trying and I wanted to provide you with an update. That in itself, though it doesn't cover information, it tells me that, oh, well, this person is thinking about me, is actually, they didn't forget about the process. They didn't forget about where I was, and I appreciate it.
Right.
And then, the point that you mentioned about rejections earlier, where you said like, oh, if it was not meant for you, there's something bigger. Speaking of the intro, I'll go back to how we got introduced. Years later, I actually met a colleague that worked for that company,
Yeah.
and when I told him, oh, I did these interviews with that company, and I mentioned my experience, and his exact words at the time was, "You dodged a bullet." So, like 6 months or a year
Oh,
later, that team was completely disbanded,
yes.
and it didn't really work out. So, at the end of the day, you're absolutely right that element of humanity, and despite having that rejection, I think is critical. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Yeah.
So now let's get even more practical.
Okay.
When you're thinking about hiring designers, I'm still going to use that high level word, but you can dive in and you can kind of call it out for different roles as you see it fit. But
Okay.
what are the things that you're looking for as someone who's managing? I'm not going to say recruiter. I'm going to use your words as someone who's managing the talent experience end to end. So, what do you look for, and what about hiring managers? If you can give us some highlights of the kind of things that you look for and the hiring managers would look for, and also maybe talk to us a little bit about any factors that go into that. If it varies depending on certain factors, what might those factors be?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Um, Absolutely. If the hiring manager and I am looking for the same thing, that is perfection. So we should be aligned and we should both
Mhm.
know what the other is doing and that we're both looking for the same goal. So in my current role, I'm introducing these design creatives, and we have very high standards, and it's within the US market only, that are working on digital design, branding, social media, campaigns from end to
Mhm.
end, design systems work like within a corporation, and in some cases, advertising. And I'm looking for, attracting the type of designer and the creativity of someone that like sees through the lens of an artist, but also they're adaptable. They're like a utility player to create these full scope design systems and work within
Mhm.
that. I'm looking for a good portfolio, someone who perhaps that specific role or that freelancer or that role needs to have someone who's a digital illustrator. So
Mhm.
not every generalist graphic designer, which we don't really say graphic anymore, they're a designer because you have to be multifaceted. Um, they might not have that specific skill set, but
Mhm.
in some cases, I'm looking for that specifically, and that's maybe more in a freelance opportunity. Um, I'm looking for the experience of someone that has worked on not only advertising and consumer facing like CPG goods, things like that,
Mhm.
that kind of perspective to the public. I'm looking for the full design system because that's what we specialize in. And what the hiring manager is looking for is all of that, but they're closer to the work, so they know more, like exactly what it is. So the hiring manager is looking for that, that mix of who's going to be fill out their team. What does their team do? They need more of like a project manager type of personality that is also a creative to have things move ahead a little bit faster, or do they need just a very person who can start things and come up with brainstorming and creative new ideas? Maybe they're stronger on the beginning implementing or instigation stage. So we're both looking for the same thing, hopefully, to make the perfect hire.
Okay. I know we spoke of metaphors quite a lot, and kind of different analogies. This time, as you were talking about how the hiring manager understands or knows the context of where this person will fit, I was thinking of a puzzle. I was thinking about how
Yes.
this new team member, potential team member, can fit. How important is that for you to ask questions not only around the role itself, but the context and the rest of the team?
Yeah, I think that's critical. It's crucial because with every new role that we post, we're doing an intake call within the company between my team and the hiring manager, and we have a dedicated project manager as well. Sometimes a client engagement person, but it's usually between me, the hiring manager, maybe a team member, and then the project manager. And how important that is, the talent manager sometimes doesn't have access to the actual day-to-day work. They need to be shown the work, especially me, like knowing about design and being visual. And if you show me the work exactly what you need, and also tell me what kind of personality you're looking for, I know the culture fit already. So we don't need to talk about that. But what is your particular team's culture? Are you different within the company? Does your team behave differently? A lot of different companies have silos as well, and they could be a total entity on their own within a company. So your team dynamics is very important to know from the hiring manager. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to get more specific, and I want to add the most value for our listeners. If I was to ask you, for a candidate from a perspective of a seeker, a job seeker, a designer that's out there in the market, what advice would you give them, especially, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit more, but especially in the current state of the job market? Maybe give us some do's and don'ts for the people listening that fall within this designer seeker bucket.
Yeah, I think that's a crucial question for these current times and this volatile market right now. I think a big do is at this time, play to your strengths, lean on your strength. So if you are an extrovert and you're very good at networking, if you're a social person and charming, I mean, use that right now to reach out to people in your network, to your friends, to others. If you're an intern, if you're starting out, it's even more crucial to get your name out there. Keep your skills finely tuned in some of the downtime. Within this ever-changing world, you have maybe an extra hour in the day where you can learn about new technologies. We're utilizing now AI and AR and VR and Web3 and smell-o-vision, whatever you can think of, right? But and don't be combative to this because it's going to work against you, because it's coming no matter what we think. We can be cognizant, but rein in that power that you can get from AR or AI, learn it, and then make it your tool, not your master. Like make sure that you learn it and utilize it and get on top of it before it becomes, something you have to chase. I think within the application process in this weird times we're living in, a lot of people tend to do the bullet spray model of applying, like they're just like shooting out
Mm-hmm.
in a panoramic across every role they see, every role with the designer title. And I think that's not helpful at all. It's statistics applying, and it's truly wasted time. It's wasted effort. I think now you do the opposite. You apply to roles that you're absolutely qualified for. You'd be surprised at how many people just shoot their shot, and they
Mm-hmm.
and the truth is, conserve your energy, put it inward, strengthen yourself, and then apply with strategy, because we see it all. We see 100, 200, 300 applicants, and honestly 90%, 80% are completely gone within 6 seconds of my seeing them. So especially now, because people are, desperate times are calling for desperate applications. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's helpful. Another do could be to selectively tailor your resume to the role, because that's the same idea. Like
Mm-hmm.
tailor, only apply to roles that you have all of the skills for. Likewise, research the company on the other end, because in the long run, are you going to be happy there? Investigate them, investigate their current designers, what their work is like, what their style is like, because it's not only for the now, it's not only for the getting the job right now. It's like, you want longevity, don't you? Like, you want to be there at the company. That's another thing. Prepare for interviews. I can't tell you how many people just give canned answers, and
Mm-hmm.
we've heard it all, we sense it all, we know that this is prepared and it's not authentic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very important. Show your personality. That's a big one, because people hire people they want to be around all day and people that they
Mm-hmm.
like and can communicate with. So if I can't see that from you, I'm going to try to bring it out. But if it takes too much effort, there is someone else who has a great personality just shining through, and they might have it's very competitive. And maybe update your portfolio, because a lot of designers tend to just use it as a diary of their work from beginning to end. Like, this is what I
Mm-hmm.
did in my first year of design. But talent managers want to see relevance in a snapshot. Like I said, they might take a few seconds to decide, but you need to have a good portfolio that shows quality over quantity. Limit the projects. Give us a glimpse of your personality, like enough to make us want to call you. Like, are you an adventure seeker or something? Like, just a little blurb about you.
Mm-hmm.
Tailor your presentation to the kind of work that you want to be hired for, because you're not going to get a job for a campaign project when you've never done a campaign and you don't show a campaign on your portfolio. And a lot of recruiters that might not have the experience, they literally have a list of, like, I need to find a campaign, I need to find something for a tech,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to find someone who does typography really well. And they'll go to the portfolio and they'll look for those three things. So there are multiple things. I could go on and on, but it would be another podcast.
Well, I think you gave us a lot of important things, and I hear, like there's lots of terms that are out
Mhm.
there that I kind of wanted to ask you about, but before I go on that tangent, and maybe I should control myself a little bit,
Okay.
because we can go on to your point, we can go on forever. I
Yeah.
want to understand your perspective. You mentioned the job market. You called it
Mhm.
it's weird out there. It's a difficult job market. Speak to me about the state of this job market for designers specifically, and maybe in North America. And then, of course, if you have any insights globally, please share them. But let's start with, what is this? How do you describe the job market today for designers, starting with North America?
I'd be a multi-millionaire if I knew exactly what's happening in this market right now, but because everyone has a different take on it. But I can only give my honest personal experience. I think that the job market in North America right now is highly competitive. It's in flux. There's multiple layoffs and restructures. So pivoting and being agile is key right now. So you have to kind of see where the layoffs are happening, who's being laid off, what part of the company is being laid off, and how are they restructuring? Like are they restructuring? Like, are they building back up? There are opportunities in everything, even destruction. So even and what is torn down has to be built up, unless the company is, going out of business or something. But hopefully, big companies, companies like that, are not. And it's a time to pivot. It's a time to maybe shift to more being open to freelancing, maybe project work. There are opportunities that you can take to update your digital skills, because as I said, there are no graphic designers anymore. They have to have a digital skill to translate this work. That's part of the restructuring process, where if you're outdated skills or older technology, you haven't grown in the industry, then that role is going to be taken out. So watch where the work is moving in this one. It's a globally connected world right now. There are remote options, yes, but people have tasted that, and they just don't want to go back into the office. They don't want to be hybrid or in office, but it makes sense to be open to that, just for your chances to get another role. And then the other flip side of that is people are becoming very entrepreneurial, and they're creating their own opportunities, but it takes a lot of dedication and effort, and you have to have something to stand on. You have to have you have to pay for dinner somehow. But, yeah, that's what I would say. But no one, I think, really knows what's happening in the job market other than change. So
It's very interesting, because I think maybe in I want to say it was maybe 2 years ago, when COVID hit and we were all working from home and so on. There was this rapid investment into digital in general, and hiring was the completely flip side, especially for digital talent, designers, product managers. It was a very inflated market, and now I think it looks like we came full circle, and it's the complete opposite of what was the market maybe I say 2 years ago. It feels like it's 2 years ago, but it's kind of midway through the pandemic, and very interesting to see how quick things change. And with that maybe comes an element of say desperation, maybe for candidates out there that are looking for a job. You mentioned, some of the don'ts around rage applying, or applying, or the spray and pray approach. You also mentioned things around taking the time to tailor your resume and work on it. What would you say? Like, I mean, this is great advice. What would you say to people? Some of the people looking right now, where things are rough out there, and like you said, there's the financial aspect of finding some stability and being able to put food on the table. Where I hear a lot the thing around, well, nobody even saw my application. Like, there's 400, 500 candidates on this job. If I was to apply, nobody's even going to read it. And I'll be lucky if a human reads it before it goes through one of the automated resume tracking systems that exist. So what's your advice to that part, where how do you even get someone to give you a chance to notice you, given how competitive it is, and how that these strategies, to your point, don't necessarily work?
Yeah, a lot of answers running through my mind right now, but first I want to say I look at every single resume that comes through, and
Mm,
we reply um, to all applicants. So I don't think that's the right way, in that you filter them that way, and nobody gets seen, because that's just not fair. But the thing someone can do is, if you're good, you have faith in yourself, you're confident, and you're building up your skill set no matter what level you're in. Have some faith. Faith goes
mm,
a long way, and positivity goes a long way, and confidence. But that, of course, that doesn't always get you the job, but that sets you up on a foundation that you can, you could approach the recruiter, find out who is posting the job. um, some don't like it, some like it, but you know what? You still get seen. Um, Another thing is that this is now the time to better your skill set, to if there's something missing from your vision of what you want to be, like you don't have this particular software or something like that, now is the time to do it, to learn it, and showcase your skills and your tech somewhere, like perhaps add even a testimonial section to your portfolio to
mm,
put yourself apart a little bit from the other applicants. um, Post your work online, post your work in multiple different areas, not only LinkedIn, although I love
mhm,
LinkedIn, but in different forums, or different other websites like Working Not Working, all of those. There also, maybe get the help of a connection that's got a foot in the
mm,
door of that company, someone who would vouch for you. And they will vouch for you if you've done all the before things I mentioned, that you've upgraded your skills, that you've kept in touch, that you've been personable with people, and you've been a person that people want to work with.
mm,
That will happen a lot. Um, Also, industry specific. Online events or in-person events. A lot of people are just not going to anything in person anymore. It's just like that's
mm.
off, but there's a real value to that. If you have one in your city, go to those things, go to meetups, go to things like that. Um, and you have to do it for the love of your work and the love of bettering yourself. You can't do it just to get the thing.
Mm,
um, that I think that sets people apart, and people can smell that. They know if you have passion for your work.
absolutely. I think the mindset, the heart that you have, the connection that you have to your craft.
Mhm.
You mentioned a lot of amazing nuggets there. Um, I'll go back to the part, and maybe I'll try to wrap up with two more questions on this. But
Sure.
thinking about the other part of the matchmaking, we spoke quite a lot about the seeker and the process.
Yeah.
We spoke about the matchmaker, who's you in this case. But let's talk about the, I don't know if I were to call them the lucky few, or now given the market, the hiring manager perspective, the other side of the matchmaking. As a
Yeah.
hiring manager, knowing everything that's happening, from the weirdness of the job market to the desperation that might happen to the talent out there, what advice would you give or offer to a hiring manager looking for great designers today?
Oh, I was really hoping you would ask me this question, because now I can let loose. um, you know, Hiring managers, first of all, I want to say, like, I don't know how lucky they are. They're in a very difficult position, and a lot
Mm,
of times have to work with less staff on the same number, or you know, shaky projects that they don't know or going to have the budget for in the
mm,
next month. So it's precarious on both ends. And I think what advice for the hiring manager would be, be as transparent as possible with your talent partner on who you want, what kind of skill set you want exactly. Don't expect them to know everything. They're not close to the work like you are. And it's not just a meeting in your calendar to do an intake call with your talent partner. You need to really give them the vision of what you want and the skills that you want and show them the actual work. Like, this is what we do on a daily basis. It's going to make a world of difference. They're your partner. When you go through the process and you interview a candidate, you want to give the talent partner a feedback. A lot of them don't. They don't. I don't even know if sometimes they've actually met and got on the call. Like, you have to check. I'm very meticulous about things like that. But I have a great relationship with the hiring managers I work with. I respect them. They know to tell me as much as possible, and I'm very candid with them, as you can probably imagine. Just tell me what you want. Tell me. And it's again just another relationship that if it's a good one, if it's an open, transparent one, then you will get all that you need.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And absolutely true about having I guess a dual perspective. You said it's not essentially better for hiring managers, just again given the job market and how things are. So, I mean, the grass might not always be greener on the other side, and challenges exist in both cases.
Oh yeah, the higher up the chain you are, I think that the more you have to lose, right? And the more people are have an eye on that opportunity as well, So
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more senior things get, the more competitive, because there's obviously less. There's more competition and there is less roles in that space. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I kind of went through most of, if not all, the things that I wanted to go over, but I have a very important question for you that kind of connects where we started around your passions. I want to know what's the best way for people listening to this podcast to learn about your art and also about the roles that you're hiring for and potentially connect with you.
Oh, thank you. So, I have a unique first name, so I think if you put in my first name and last name, it jumps up at you. But I'm always open to connecting with people on LinkedIn. I respond as much as possible. I even give interviews and consultations just because I want to. I want to help people, so they can reach out on LinkedIn, Inji Elnady. And for any personal links, I actually have one link that could be leading to all those passions. It's like it's literally a tree. It's link tr linktr.ee/Inji INJI. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll make sure that I also add it as part of the description. I just wanted to say thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. I truly enjoyed it. I learned so much from you. Thank you for being on the Product People podcast, and truly insightful conversation. Thanks for being on.
Likewise, Elsawi, thank you for being the medium to get this information to people, because otherwise, it's hard to find. It's very candid. It's very from the heart, and hopefully it helps somebody.
I'd like to extend my gratitude to our fantastic guest, Inji Elnady, for sharing her valuable insights on hiring designers. During our conversation, we spoke about managing the talent experience, the state of the design job market, and how can candidates and hiring managers be more human in the process. I found Inji's insights to be both meaningful and practical, and I hope you did too. I want to express my gratitude to all our listeners. Your support means the world to me. If you found today's episode valuable, please hit the subscribe button, leave a review, or share this podcast with your friends. I also encourage you to share your feedback and your ideas on what topics you'd like to hear about next on this podcast. Your input is very important as it helps me learn and improve. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes, and until next time, stay courageous, creative, and compassionate. Take care.